Hi friends, welcome to Law Chat with Girja. I'm Girja Bhargav Patel, your host for Law Chat, and I am so excited for you to join us today. I have some amazing guests on Law Chat, and they're here to share their experiences and entrepreneurial journey with us, and through their storytelling, mentorship with us, because that is the whole point. We are all entrepreneurs and we're all on a journey, and learning from one another is the best way for us to move forward in our journey as well. And I have amazing guests who are so willing and ready to share their stories with us, their challenges and their victories and their achievements, and also their mindset. I just can't wait to share that with you, and I also just can't wait to have that conversation with them. It's such a privilege to have each and every one of them here with us today, and also it's such a privilege to have you listening in and tuning in. So let's dive in to Law Chat with Girja. Hi friends, welcome to Law Chat with Girja. I am so excited today because I have a very special guest today, and like he had also mentioned earlier, he is my first male guest on the show today, but he's also a fellow attorney, and I'm just so happy to have him on the show. If I call him just an attorney, that would be not an accurate description of what he does. He's actually a Renaissance man. I've read through his bio, and I feel like has done so many things and achieved so many things in life. And I just can't wait to talk about all of that, and also the journey that has led him to be where he is today. He too also is a lawyer, but he also has a podcast for lawyers where he teaches them entrepreneurship. And so I'm really happy to connect with him, and welcome to the show, Neil Tyra.
Well, thank you, Grisha. I'm thrilled to be a guest on the show, and kind of honored to be the first guy to to have that honor. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the show is meant for everybody. I think it's just happened to be such where I've just happened to be interviewing a lot of female entrepreneurs, but I am really honored to have you on the show, and thank you
Great,
again.
delighted to be here.
Yeah, so let's start. I know that you're a lawyer.
Yep.
I know you have a podcast also, but I know there's so much more to that journey. So let's start from the beginning. How did it all begin?
Well, law is my fourth career, and if you count podcasting, I was like four and a half careers. So I like to say I'm not really sure what I want to be when I grow up. So I'm not sure where else this will lead to, but learning has always been kind of my passion. I was one of those weird people who loved going to school, and
Mhm.
I was in really no hurry to graduate from college, from undergrad school. So I sampled a lot of things, and I started off in life cooking for a living. So that made my mother very happy because she knew that I would not go wanting for a meal. So I cooked all over the Annapolis area here in Maryland, in the Washington, D.C. area. And then I went to work in the telecommunications information industry, high tech field. I worked in various programs in support of NASA and DoD. So I
Mhm.
spent 20 plus years building hardware and software systems for the government in those specialty areas.
Wow.
Um, and then all along, I was a practicing martial artist. And so there came a time when I was looking to make a change and get out of the IT world for a little while. And one of my black belts said, well, why don't we open up a commercial studio? I said, oh, that sounds great. So the entrepreneurial spirit kicked in, and I opened up a martial arts studio, the Kenshin Karate School, and did that for the better part of 12, 13 years. But all along the way, I had harbored ideas about going to law school.
Mhm.
And I had a couple of friends who went to law school late in life, and I thought, well, let me just see if I could get in as a first step. And so I was lucky enough to get into law school at the Columbus School of Law at the Catholic University of America here in Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
And so then I had a choice. What am I going to do? I got in. Am I going to go full-time or part-time? What do I do with the karate school? And I ended up selling the karate school, which paid for law school, and went to law school full-time. I was the oldest graduating member of my class, proud to be so. And I wasn't happy by the wide margin by which I was the oldest member of the class, but be that as it may, I went to work for a small boutique law firm in downtown Washington, D.C. All through law school, I worked at the state's attorney's office, so I really thought I was going to put bad guys in jail. But I had a little crisis of confidence when I got out of law school and took a position with a small boutique firm in D.C. doing personal injury work. Stayed there for about 3 years, and then my son was a pretty accomplished athlete, and I knew he had an opportunity to start in high school on his soccer team. I wanted to see all of his games as I had always done. So I went to my employers and said, I'm going to go start my own firm.
Yeah.
Again, the entrepreneurial spirit kicked in. And I'm one of those people who made the decision to start my own firm and quit my job and just jumped in without a whole lot of planning. My thinking was, well, I'd already owned a business,
Right.
built it and sold it. So I'd made a ton of mistakes in that business. And so I figured, well, I've already made all the mistakes I can make. Well, little did I know that opening a law practice, there's a whole new set of mistakes you can make.
Yeah.
Which I promptly did. And, so I had a leg up on the competition in some respects, having been an entrepreneur, been a business owner. I knew a little bit about what I was doing, but I still made, a few of those mistakes that I wish I had done otherwise. And so I've been in solo practice now for going on 15 years. So if you do the math, that makes me really old.
Well, you don't look a day older than whatever. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
old is just a mindset. And I think your mindset is that of a young person, because at the end of the day, I feel like it takes so much courage to make all those bold moves that you made, especially, just jumping in. And like how you said before, you just did it. As an entrepreneur, I think a lot of times we just jump into it and then we start thinking about how we need to follow through now, because the idea is so much that we love. But just rewinding a little bit back to your chef days. So what is it that, you were a chef and you loved that. That was your passion at the time. So how did you make that shift from chef to technology? Because that's a huge difference in industry.
Yeah, it was. Well, I was looking for somebody to pay my way to go to undergrad. Mm-hmm. And my father's a longtime military person, and so he was really urging me to apply to the Air Force Academy. And I think his greatest disappointment in life is that I actually didn't apply to the academy. But I knew that there was a lot of businesses out there that once you went to work for them had educational benefits. That's not so much true today as it was back in the day. Back in the day, once you went to work for some of these companies, it didn't matter what college course you took, they would pay for it. Now, more often, it has to be directed to the mission of the business that you're working for.
Right.
But I just applied for a job, a bunch of them, and got a job at the Goddard Space Flight Center. It's going to tell my age. I got a job as a teletype operator. And teletype was a communication system that used to send almost like telegraph messages. And so the requirement was that you had to type 80 words a minute. Well, I got the job before I took the typing test. And when I got there, they wanted to give me the typing test. I said, hey, yeah, about that typing test, I'm not going to pass it. And they said, well, we already hired you. I mean, yeah. Do you have anything else? And so I went to work in the control center, what's called the Network Operations Control Center, that scheduled all the support for the unmanned scientific satellites that NASA supported. And one thing led to another, and I spent many years in the space program working for NASA, and then ultimately transitioned to DoD projects. But yeah, that's how I got in. I applied for and got a job that I wasn't qualified for, and talked my way into something different that ended up being a career.
That's incredible. And when you were talking your way into a whole nother job within the company that you signed up for, what were you thinking at that time? Like, if you go back into time, like what was like, oh crap, like now I'm going to get fired, or I'm just going to see what happens now.
Well, that was it. My first thought was, I'm going to get fired before I ever get started. But the other thing is, this probably speaks to why I ultimately became an attorney, because my mother used to always say that I had the gift of the gab, okay, which I really think means you just talk a lot.
I actually think
You
that
know,
too. I don't think it's a compliment.
right? I don't really think it was a compliment. Certainly my teachers never thought of that as a skill set that they would want emulated.
Oh,
Um, so I was just, I'm going to work this guy and I'm going to be charming and I'm going to tell him how much I can help the company in some other capacity. You just name what it is that you have and I'll throw all my attention and effort into it. He liked my enthusiasm and found this opening. And like I said, I stayed there in the control center. I started off at the lowest position in the control center when I was not old enough to vote. And by the time I left, I was what's called a launch director, which again was a pretty significant position that I was really thrilled to be a part of. And I tell people back then that was a job I literally would have done for free because it
right.
was so enjoyable, so
That's awesome.
stimulating.
Right.
And so that was my space days.
I hate to interrupt this awesome conversation, but I have to stop and talk with you about the number one thing I'm asked about by entrepreneurs: contracts. They're vital to any business relationship and to protect your business. But I also know that entrepreneurs, especially when you're starting up, money is tight. But I would never want you to compromise on a strong legal foundation. So enter yourcontractbuddy.com, a website created by me with contract templates created and drafted by me and fellow industry partners. They're ready to use and easy to plug in immediately. And they are not restricted to any specific state. So yourcontractbuddy.com is sponsoring this episode, and you and your listener can get 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. Yes, you heard me right. 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. And now, back to our awesome conversation. I think, first of all, persistence is underrated. And I also think the gift of the gab is also underrated. Yeah. I think that it should be cultivated actually in schools rather than looked at upon as negative, because it can really help people navigate using their, their mind and the way they speak.
A lot of people have difficulty communicating.
Yeah.
And I remember I took a speech class, easiest class I ever took in my life. Easiest A I ever got, okay? But public speaking is something that terrifies a lot of people. So it's a skill set that you can actually develop and hone, and entrepreneurs have to be able to communicate either orally or in writing. The other thing is you got to learn how to write. You got to learn how to be able to put your thoughts into a coherent written word, because again, entrepreneurs rely on the written word as well as the spoken word to get their mission across. So those are two skills. Again, I talk about education because I think education is the key to everything, and I love going to classes. But you don't have to go to a formal class to get educated on public speaking or improving your writing. You can there are tons of resources available, particularly now on the internet, that you can take advantage of to improve those skill sets. And for an entrepreneur, there's nothing more valuable.
Exactly. I completely agree with you. I personally love educating myself all the time, even if it's like the silliest thing, but it's like the more knowledge I have, the better able I am also to speak about something and also to share my experiences with others. Yeah. And I think education is everything.
If I'm not learning something new, I feel stagnant. I feel like I am wasting my time if I'm not trying to attain some new skill set. And that manifests itself in my business a lot. So I'm always trying to learn new things. And I'll give a plug for LinkedIn Learning. Used to be called lynda.com, but now LinkedIn bought it. So LinkedIn Learning, thousands of courses that you can take.
Wow.
Thousands of courses on entrepreneurship, on digital marketing, on copywriting. You can do that forever.
I didn't even know
And
that. What a
yeah,
great tool.
yeah. So
Is
that's
it
a great.
free or is it
There's a
you have to
paid
pay for it?
service.
It's a
It's a
paid
paid service, but
service.
you can do the. I think they have a 2 week or a 1 month trial membership,
Mm-hmm.
so you can find a ton of things to study. And there's like classes that are 1 hour in length, 20 minutes in length, and then there's other classes, a series of classes that can take up to multiple hours.
Mm-hmm.
So like I did a whole course on WordPress, so I knew how to manage and develop my website. I did a whole course
Okay.
on digital marketing, a whole course on Google AdWords, a whole course on your Google profile. So anything you want to learn,
I'm
uh,
sold. I have been
yeah,
struggling with WordPress the last few
ah,
weeks, and I've had to hire out for all of this stuff, and it's so expensive. Not that
yeah,
these people are totally worth it because like I
yeah,
can't do it for my life, but getting
yeah.
that education, that little one up gives you working knowledge, which I think
Well,
is
and I'll tell
important.
you, like in your experience, what that's good for. If you took the say the WordPress introductory class, which I think is about, I'm going to say it's about 6 hours in length. It's broken up into different modules. Then when you go out and hire your virtual assistants to help you, you have an in-depth understanding of what they're doing,
Mhm.
and you can collaborate with them even more in detail and with greater results, and probably save yourself some money in the long run than if
Mhm.
you weren't aware of it. So you don't have to do it yourself,
Right.
but just educating yourself so that you know what your virtual assistant is doing for you
Mm.
is immeasurably valuable.
I think so too. I have recently been feeling that a lot and experiencing that in my own business. And I think having a working knowledge of anything in your business is very important.
Yeah,
Whether it is how to do the most minuscule task for your business as opposed to the biggest task for your business as well. And it just really helps if you have it. And even if you're hiring out, I agree, it can really help navigate your expectations and what's good and what's not good if something is working or it's not working as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
Completely 100% agree. So we're going now from NASA and now you're going into it. Did you buy the karate business at that time? Or, I mean, or was that during your time in NASA?
So while I was in the information technology world, I was always a practicing martial artist. So I had a teacher who ultimately moved to, he was an attorney too, by the way. He came to the Washington, D.C. area to go to school, a law school that's now no longer in existence, but he graduated and went back to New York City to practice law. And when he left, we had a little club that we had that practiced twice a week. And he left a woman in charge of it, the senior ranking student in charge of it. She then left to go have a baby, and I took over, and then the rest is history. So I maintained the club for several years on a club basis, built it up, and then when it came time to leave the IT world, I already had 30 to 40 students then. Going commercial, you have to really expand upon that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we opened a commercial studio space closer to where I lived and built that business up to the point where we were teaching hundreds of kids and
Wow.
and adults. And over the course of the 12 years that we did that, probably 2 or 3 thousand students came through the doors, many of whom I still communicate with on a regular basis.
That's incredible. So let's talk a little bit about this business of yours. It feels like it was organic almost just because you were the next person in line to take over. But how did you make that decision? Because ultimately you still had to make that decision like, okay, I'm going to take over this, or was it just very organic and it just happened?
Well, again, I think lawyers are different in the sense that most entrepreneurs leap off that plank
Yeah.
and into the shark infested waters and then figure out how to avoid the sharks and how to swim. Lawyers will sit on that plank, have a seat, analyze, the entire situation, get paralyzed by the analysis, paralysis by analysis, and in many times fail to make the leap. So for better or worse, I just jumped into it. Now,
Yeah.
I made really good money in the IT world. So I had a bankroll. I knew that I wasn't going to lose my house by opening a martial arts studio that might not turn a profit for a little while. So I just jumped in. Now, did I waste money along the way? Absolutely, I did.
Yeah.
Because I made, several mistakes. And this was pre-internet days. The internet was just starting to emerge. Had I done that now and had the ability to use social media and Facebook and advertising and social media advertising as well, it would have been a completely different experience. I probably wouldn't have had to work so hard to build a clientele. I probably could have done that a lot easier. But in the day, it was a little more challenging, and you had to do a lot of things to make yourself known and to build a business.
Yeah, I agree. I think like today's world, we have so much social media, and that's almost like free marketing. And it really helps to boost the awareness of your business. And I think when that wasn't there, marketing was so different back then.
Yeah.
Like now there's a whole nother avenue of marketing in influencers and in bloggers, and that did not exist back then. And this was about models or about hiring somebody that was a celebrity or local celebrities. And so
I mean, we did a lot of things, passing out flyers and door hangers and, public demonstrations and all that kind of stuff. In today's world, for an entrepreneur, if you're not paying attention to social media, you will not make it.
Yes.
I'll just tell you that flat out. If you think you can create a business and, go by word of mouth or other types of advertising, you think, print advertising, that's really way down on the list today. You have to go where your potential clients are and where are people spending their time. They're not spending the time reading the newspaper anymore. They're not spending the time browsing through magazines. They're not spending the time really watching TV or listening to the radio. Everything's streamed. So they're spending their time on social media platforms, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, you name it. That's where the potential clients are. If you're not working those platforms, you're just simply going to be left behind. And that's a huge challenge to attorneys who are in large part are technology averse. But for any entrepreneur, you have to pay attention to those skill sets.
Absolutely. I think the legal world is a dinosaur and is just in a lot of ways. Yeah. And, I think what you're doing and what I'm doing is very different from the normal lawyer activity. And a lot of times when I go and talk to people, they're a little like, wait, what just happened? Like, is this a lawyer talking to us or is this for real? I think it's so refreshing, because I do believe that it's so essential for business owners, entrepreneurs to have access to lawyers and accounting and things like that are so integral part of their businesses. So yes, I love the fact that we're able to be part of the social media savvy thing that's going on right now. Yep. But, keeping up with even that is tough. Like with Instagram, all these changes are happening. And if you're not doing reels, then you're missing out also. And there's definitely a balance to social media as well. Yeah. And I would encourage people to definitely take advantage of it, especially if it's free, but also not to lose sight of what the core of their business is. And I think that's also easily able to do. It's that you get so entangled with social media and wanting to be on it and show yourself and be present, but then you also have something that makes the needle move, and that is the actual work.
Well, your concern about balance is really well founded, because you can go overboard, and there's a fine balance too between mixing your personal brand and your professional brand.
Right.
And so those are a couple of things you have to pay attention to and get feedback on if you're not crystal clear about it yourself, because you can have an extreme presence on any of those platforms, but at the same time, you may be defeating your purpose if people don't really see the person behind the image. Mm-hmm. If they just see it as an image, it comes across as fake marketing. Mm-hmm. And folks on social media are particularly adept at discerning that difference.
Mhm.
And so you have to find that balance. And I think, that's a really key word, balance in your approach to using these platforms.
So what would be some tips on how to show the real you and not too much of the real you also, where you're compromising the business brand, but enough to where you are authentic and you are not just doing this showcase?
Well, I don't profess to be an expert in this subject, but let me tell you what I do.
But you have experience.
But I
So
have some
yeah.
experience. And so to that extent, it may be helpful. So I maintain 2 different accounts on every platform: a personal Facebook page, a business Facebook page, a personal Twitter account, a business Twitter account, and the like. Most of the work that I do in terms of my law practice, I do on the business side, right? And most of my personal stuff is on the personal side. And I try and keep those, largely separated. However, oftentimes I'll cross over. And so I'll bring like a business post to my personal page. And I might preface it with something like, I don't talk about my practice, too much on here, but this is relevant.
Mhm.
Or this is important, or I think people might find value in this. So the people who are on your personal page recognize that you're not using your personal page to troll for business all the time, and they're
Mhm.
willing to accept that every now and again you're going to do something and they go, oh yeah, I forgot he's an attorney, he does estate planning. Let me think. I think I need my will done. Okay. By the same token, every once in a while, I'll take the personal post and put it on my business page. And I did one just recently about the relationship my wife has with our dog. It was largely built off of this fabulous picture of the dog just looking up with pure love in her eyes to my wife. And I posted that on my business page and and I went on to talk, ironically, about pet trusts that you can set up to
Oh,
provide.
perfect. Yeah.
So it was a nice little segue, and people loved it. Just so
Mhm.
you can show a little bit of each on each platform. If you get carried away, then
Mhm.
you lose that advantage. I was speaking to another attorney this morning. We were speaking about a third attorney who all they do on their personal pages and their personal feeds is talk about their business.
Oh yeah.
And she was saying, like, I don't really think I know them. I know a lot about their business, but I don't know them
Mhm.
as individuals, even though we're, quote, friends.
Yeah.
So I like to keep those 2 things separate, but not so separate as to have people not know the profession behind the person or the person behind the profession.
Yeah, I love that advice. I actually don't have a separate Instagram account. I also, sprinkle in a little personal stuff on the stories, but the feed itself is all work related, business related. And I think it's mainly because it's just so much work to manage all the accounts.
Yeah.
And so, but I think I might just end up now starting a personal account and just kind of do as I do on that one, not
Well,
have
let
it
me give
very
you a little
organized.
tip about managing multiple accounts.
Yeah.
Hootsuite,
Oh, okay. I use
Hoot.
Planoly.
Yes, well that will work too.
Yeah.
But I use Hootsuite, HOOTSUITE.com. And in Hootsuite, you can make one post and post it to multiple platforms.
Mm.
So on the business side, a lot of times what I'm doing is bringing relevant articles to others' attention, sharing with them that value
Mm-hmm.
of, you may not be reviewing Forbes magazine or investment magazine the way I am for these issues related to estate planning. So I'm something of an information curator for those
Mm-hmm.
folks. And so I can take a link, write a little blurb about the article that I'm referencing, post it one time, and it goes out to my business Facebook page, my business Twitter account, and my LinkedIn.
Oh,
So
that's wonderful.
I get a lot of mileage, and it saves, you can schedule posts ahead of time. So every Thursday, I will schedule posts, the next 4 posts. So it
Hmm.
posts for Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday of the following week.
Yeah.
And I just keep a running note and add these links to the note. So when it comes time to populate Hootsuite, I go to my note, my online note system, go to my note, pull the link, paste it in, add the 2 or 3 sentences of copy that I want to add, and post it. I get a whole week and a half's worth of postings done in about 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh. And what's your online system that you use for taking notes and all?
So I use the built-in Apple Note system. So I'm an Apple guy.
Okay.
So they have a notes system, and the good thing is that it will be available to any device that you have signed on to your iCloud account.
Mm-hmm.
So I have one note. It's called Social and Blog Media Ideas. And when I'm browsing the internet, or I use another aggregator to find stories, when I find something I like, I copy the link and I share it to the same note. And it appends that link to the note. And so when it comes time for me to go into Hootsuite and populate Hootsuite, I open the note and there's my whole list of links that I've
Mm-hmm.
curated. I pick
Mm-hmm.
one, paste it in, and there we go.
I love it. I love the streamlining and efficiency. It makes my heart happy.
Well, here's the thing, you can have somebody do this for you. You could hire
Right.
a VA to do that, but look, that takes a little bit of time and effort. And the other thing that I'm not too keen on is then you don't have control of what gets posted necessarily. So I'd rather do it myself. These are articles that I find interesting,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I take the approach, if I find it interesting, chances are my clients or my potential clients are going to
Yeah.
find it interesting as well. And it keeps me connected that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And now kind of going back to the journey that you had as an entrepreneur, after the karate school, did you sell it off or did you just close it, shut
No,
down
I
the
sold it.
doors? You sold
I
it.
sold it. Yep.
And so when you were selling it, like what were some of the challenges that you faced in selling it and how did you overcome them?
Well, as a business, it's not that difficult. Well, I shouldn't say that. There were some issues, like what's the value of the business that I'm selling?
Yeah.
And so one way to value that is to look at accounts receivable and say, how many students do I have who are signed up on a program that extends for some period of months? And so you could look at that and say, okay, the cash flow value of this business is based on those accounts that are obligated to pay me.
Right.
Okay. And then you figure in some factor for the assets that you have, the hard assets. The challenge for us really was how many of our students would stay on with the new school owner,
Mm.
because they were a different style, a different philosophy, but they were part of a larger chain.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't all that concerned about it. It was a little difficult on some of my students, particularly those who had been with me for a long time. Some of my adult students, it was tough on them, but we were all getting older and had different
Yeah.
things going on in our lives. And we're still, two of my best friends, ones I see and speak to on a daily basis, were my karate students and
Oh,
have been
wow.
for 20 plus years now.
So I know you said that they were emotionally having a difficult time, but what about you? I mean, for you, it wasn't a national business. It
No.
was your
Well,
baby.
I was of two minds. I
Mhm.
was happy to exhale and take a little bit of a
Yeah.
break because I had been doing everything, and I had been teaching the martial arts going on between the time I was an IT guy doing martial arts on the side, and then a full-time martial artist instructor, that was close to 22 years as well. So I was ready for a little bit of a break, but there are times when I do miss it.
Yeah.
Even to this day. I mean, we had this conversation this past week about the times we used to have together, working out hard, sweating hard, training hard, sometimes bleeding hard, not too often, but we kind of miss some of those days.
Yeah, I bet. And so then did you go straight into law school from there, or did
Yep, we sure
you?
did. In fact, there was a little bit of an overlap. For
Uh-huh.
my first semester of law school, I hadn't yet sold the martial arts studio.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to law school during the day and then would travel home. I would teach 3 classes and deal with the school. I'd close the school down about at 8, and I would go home and then do some more work. Actually, sometimes do more work. Most times I just hung out with the family at that point.
Yeah. Did you have kids back then, like you
I
guys?
did. I had 2 children.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of moving parts. And I don't know about you, but when I first started law school, at the orientation, I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I was literally like, living my best life as a single
Yeah.
person. And then my parents and we went to the orientation. The first thing that the dean of the law school said is, or the admissions person, they were like, this year is going to be tough. The next 3 years are going to be really tough. Some people, their marriages end up breaking, families end up breaking, but it's tough. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it was tough. It was not an understatement at all. And I couldn't be happier though with the education that I received and the training that I received, because it truly makes my brain think very differently. And I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
But it's tough. And how did you manage that? How did you juggle all of
Well,
that?
I will tell you, the first month of law school for me, I started the end of August, and 11 days into September, we had a terrorist attack. So 9/11 occurred the second week I was in
Oh, and you were in DC.
law school, and I was in DC.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
And that was a horrendous experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it influenced really our first semester
Mm-hmm.
in law school. But, how did I handle it? I handled it like a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
So I got up in the morning, kissed the kids goodbye when they went to school, and I drove to school at that time. So I would get to law school at just a little after 8 every morning, whether I had a class or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I would grab my coffee and I'd go to the library and I'd work until I had a class, and then I'd go to class. And I spent all my free time typically in the library doing the reading, because I knew at that point I still had 3 hours of teaching to do, plus a little family time. Then towards the end of that first semester is when we sold the school.
Right.
So I didn't have to teach anymore. So that gave me a little more flexibility. And so I did do some work at home and on the weekends, but mostly that was reserved for the family. I treated law school as a full-time job from 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon.
What great advice for, people who are doing law school or masters or any other postgraduate degrees where, they're juggling many other facets of their life in addition to being a student also. So that's
not
great
everybody
advice.
has that. Not everybody has that luxury. I get that. I was blessed, and I was fortunate that I didn't have to hold down a job at the same time.
Yeah.
I had made enough money to deal with 3 years of law school, and frankly, selling the karate school helped pay for law school. So I was blessed in that regard.
Right. So was selling the karate school part of the plan as you were going into law school, that, oh, this is what I need to do? Or did that just kind of happen, like, this is just way too much on my plate?
Yeah, I wish I could say that I had thought that out. I originally thought that I could go to law school and manage the karate school part-time.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I originally thought. But that quickly became an impossibility. And that's when I started
Right.
looking to sell it.
Right. Okay. That makes sense though. When I was in law school, I went right after undergrad. And so I still had a very college student mentality.
Yeah.
And then when I went into law school, I'm like, oh gosh, I need to like learn differently. I need to prepare differently and I need to study differently. It's not the same thing. But, I still had the luxury and the privilege of treating it like school and not having to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning unless I had
Yeah.
class. But then when the bar exam came around, that's the best advice I got at that time is to treat it like a job
Yeah.
and a 9 to 5 job or a 8 to 4, whatever timings you want.
Yeah.
And I think that just because of what you just said, and then that was literally the best advice I got during that time. I feel like that holds true for so many other things that we're trying to do. And when things are priority, we just need to sometimes make it a job kind of mentality where you're dedicating your time from this to this.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example, and it has to do with entrepreneurship. I think a lot of folks have the idea that what type of business they want to create, and they'll get started in it, they'll make some headway, but they don't treat the entrepreneur aspect as a business. So they're not continually educating themselves. They're not improving on their skill set,
Yeah.
or not working on their business as opposed to working in their business. And that's a common phrase you hear amongst business coaches. You've got to get to the point where you work on your business, not in it. And so many folks fail to make that transition. So it's not sufficient to say, I don't like to do that stuff. I'm not good at it.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to build up my business so I have enough money that I can hire people to do that stuff. A lot of times it's a chicken egg conversation. And most of the successful folks that I've spoken to, they take that risk, hire that virtual assistant on a very limited basis to start, to free up some hours, and then turn those hours that they free up into learning and working on their business, and just keep doing that until they have a viable, business going forward. But if you fail to treat the entrepreneurial aspects of your business as a business, those parts are going to fail, or at least not succeed as well as they should. And you can say, well, my business didn't really work out all that well. It was a great idea, but it didn't work out. Well, it didn't work out because you focused on the wrong things.
And so when you're saying work on your business, like I truly believe in that too. And I try to add that element, part of my growth plan, part of my, goals and all that stuff. But what are some ways that a person can work on their business? What I mean by that is like, what are some easy ways to work on your business when you're first starting and, your finances might be a little bit more restricted than not?
Well, I think one of the really important aspects is defining who your clients are, making it real clear that you know who your clients are. It's not just anybody who will pay you money. There's a particular client set that you enjoy working with, that you feel your services are particularly suited for. The more you can define that, we call that sometimes creating our marketing avatar. I'm not sure I go as far as some people go about, imagining an avatar and giving them a name and an appearance, and kind of really buying into the whole visualization of who that potential client is. But I certainly believe that entrepreneurs can spend a great deal of time, and it doesn't cost anything, to get crystal clear on who their target audience is. And once you know that, that's going to drive so many other things that you can then do on a shoestring budget. So, for instance, as I go through, I'll take you an example. I do estate planning now. So even as a lawyer, I've changed practice areas. I started off doing personal injury work. I then went to family law, divorces and custody and stuff like that, and then switched to estate planning. And I had to teach myself different things at different times. And so in estate planning, who are my ideal clients? So I wanted to focus on, for lack of a better word, middle class or lower middle class clients.
Mm-hmm.
The people who so frequently don't do an estate plan because they don't think they have enough assets to warrant it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they do nothing. And they make up the great majority of the 65% of Americans who don't have an estate plan. And so that's who I wanted to focus my practice on, not on the high net worth couples.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can make a lot of money doing their estate plans, but they're more complicated, they take more time. And it's just not who I felt comfortable working with. I felt much more comfortable working with a young couple who just bought their first house or just had their first baby, or a single who just got their first, really good paying job. I felt much more comfortable working with them. So once I got that crystal clear in my mind who that was, well, that tells me who I have to market to. And so I said, well, where do those folks hang out? Where do they go? Where do they meet each other? Where do they exchange information?
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty simple at the time. That was Facebook.
Yeah.
And other social media platforms. So that drove me to the social media side of it. Okay. And then you keep asking yourself, okay, what are the concerns that these folks have? And so I joined different online groups to listen and to observe and to understand what the concerns of my ideal potential client was.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found overwhelmingly, it was something, I found two things that I hadn't thought of. The first one was young folks in that demographic didn't like coming to a lawyer's office.
Mm-hmm.
It was difficult for them.
Mm-hmm.
They had to get a babysitter, or they had to take time off from work, time that they didn't have. And so that was the number one thing. And the second thing was that they found it confusing. They didn't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
And it was overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
So armed with that information, and again, I haven't spent a dime to develop it.
Right. I was going to say that all you spent is time, your time, but
spent time in keeping your eyes and ears open and asking yourself the question. Now I have the basis for my marketing plan.
Right.
Now I know how I'm going to go out and reach this audience.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what entrepreneurs need to do, if they're short on money.
Yeah, I love that. I love that advice because it's so true. I think we get sometimes we miss sight of who our ideal client is. And then also our ideal client can change. It can evolve. It doesn't have to be the same ideal client every year of your business life. So I think it's definitely something that when you are evaluating your business on an annual level, like as you're moving forward to the next year, it's really important to evaluate how have I changed my business and how is this ideal client also changing, or where are they shifting? Where are they hanging out? Is it shifting? So, and on a total side note, did you know Zappos CEO passed away, or former CEO passed away without a will?
Yeah.
Without anything. I
posted on that. And
crushed.
I have some friends in a group that I belong to that actually knew him personally.
Oh goodness.
And it's a story that happens way too often. Too often. Prince was the same way. Aretha Franklin was the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
So crazy.
It's pretty crazy.
So crazy. Well, I wanted to really quickly touch on something that you had said earlier when you were, talking about your journey. And that was when, after you finished law school and you wanted to go into litigation in the prosecution side of things, you said that you had a confidence crisis. What was that? And how did you overcome it?
Wow, how perceptive of you to pick up on that one phrase. So in the area that I live, Montgomery County, Maryland, which is widely known as a pretty well-to-do county in the Washington suburbs.
Right.
My family, my wife's family, is from one town, Rockville, Maryland, where I have my business. And that's where the courthouse is. That's the county seat. And as I said, I spent all my time as an intern at the state's attorney's office. I was lucky enough to have a couple of judges that I knew personally who helped me get that opportunity. And at the end of, when I graduated, the state's attorney at the time absolutely will hire you, and extended me an offer. And I got to thinking, man, I've been in Rockville all my life. It's a big old world out there. I live close to the nation's capital. There's where the highest concentration of attorneys in the entire country are. Am I selling myself short by just staying here locally? Are there other opportunities out there? So that was the question I had. And I really would have liked to have had, a dozen offers to weigh and consider. I was not going, what I found out immediately as a then, how old was I when I graduated? As a then almost 50-year-old graduate, I found out that the big firms aren't going to hire a 50-year-old associate attorney. So age discrimination is real. And I can't say that I blame them. I don't know that they looked at it and said, oh, he's too old. But they definitely said to themselves, this is not somebody we're going to have for 20 or 30 years as a potential partner. So we're not going to make that investment. So I didn't have a lot of opportunities. I was very lucky to get a couple, and one of them was, as I said, was this boutique law firm. It was right in downtown on K Street, which is known as the Lobbyist Row in DC. It was in the heart of downtown Washington, the Power Avenue.
Hustle and bustle of,
all the big power firms were down there. And thought, you know what? I've only got one chance, one life. Let me take it. And so I took the job with the firm Simeone and Miller. They're still in existence, very successful these days, and did personal injury, car crashes, essentially, for 3 years with them before I struck out on my own.
Yeah. And do you ever look back and think, oh, what if I had taken that other job? Or are you just like, this was a good decision?
It's funny because there was several people who were in the same intern class as me that stayed in the prosecutor's office and are now high level assistant state's attorneys. So, would I have had the same success? I don't know.
Right.
But I wouldn't have traded it for anything. I had a great time.
Right.
I did a lot of work at the juvenile court, which was really kind of eye-opening.
Yeah.
And then when I transitioned and added family law into my practice, I got to see a whole completely different side of the litigation spectrum.
Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to just kind of, touch on that because there's a lot of times entrepreneurs, business people, we do have moments in where we feel our confidence is shaken, or we feel lack, or also we feel like imposters, or all these very key words that keep popping up, but they're real feelings that people are feeling. So it's really good to know, and I'm glad you were able to share that with us, so thank you for that.
Those terms are prevalent because those experiences are common.
Yeah.
And people do have crises of confidence, and they do feel that impostor syndrome.
Yeah.
I know when I first started doing family law, I felt that way because I felt like I really don't know what I'm doing in family law. It takes a while. Same way with estate planning. But, I think it's really important to have a mentor or a coach or somebody that you can talk to about these kinds of things and help you get over that hesitancy or that confidence issue.
And aside from mentor, like finding a mentor or coach, what are some other tools that you use to combat those feelings whenever you had them?
I'll tell you what, when I first learned how to play golf, I was really self-conscious because I wasn't any good at all. And I delayed going out on a golf course for a long time because I can't hit the ball. This is going to be a disaster. And I had a friend of mine said, hey, come with me. We're going to go to the golf course. We're going to get a beer and we're going to go sit on the first tee and watch everybody tee off. It'll be fun. And I went, okay, sounds good to me. And what I realized was only about a third of the people who ever stepped to the first tee knew how to hit a golf ball. They were all messing up. So when it came time for me to practice law, I did kind of the same thing. I went to the courthouse. Now, you can't do it right now because of the pandemic.
COVID, yeah.
But once that lifts, I don't think there's, if you want to be a litigator, just go to the courthouse, find out what's going on that day, what trial is taking place, what courtroom is doing trials, particularly if it's a district court level. Just go watch. Or, if just go immerse yourself in the experience. And so it doesn't matter what your business is. If you are, hoping to open up a sandwich shop, okay, go to them. Go experience and find out what you like, what you don't like. So that's one thing. Immerse yourself in the experience. I'm also a huge fan of podcasts. There's podcasts that you can listen to overcome.
I love podcasts too.
Yeah, it's talk radio on demand. And so for instance, if you're an attorney and you want to know about the business of running law, hopefully you'll come listen to my podcast. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to talk about all different aspects of the entrepreneurial journey, your Law Chat is the one to listen to. So you can find out that you're not alone, that the feelings that you have are not unique to yourselves, as special as you think you might be, and that people have gone through the same thing and come out the other side, successfully. So those are a couple things I use to kind of overcome those hurdles.
Yeah, and those are all very, very good advice, and I think amazing tools to have under the belt as well when tackling these kind of feelings. And thank you for reminding me that this is Law Chat, because I do like to talk a little bit about the law as well.
Yeah.
I wanted to actually ask you, I know you're a lawyer, but what are some legal things that you have encountered through your journey and all the different businesses that you've had that you wish you had known beforehand, or wish even as a lawyer you'd taken care of beforehand?
Well, I would tell you, I wish I had understood that not every practice area markets the same way. That was kind of the biggest revelation for me. So for instance, a family law attorney, people go to a family law attorney because something's broken in their family or something needs to be addressed in their family, whether it's a divorce or a prenup agreement or a custody issue or child support, whatever it is. Some event occurs. People go to a personal injury attorney because they've had an accident. People go to a criminal defense attorney because they've run afoul of the law. So in all those practice areas, there's some external event that causes the individual client to seek out an attorney. So if you're marketing it for those practice areas, what you want to do is make sure that your brand is top of mind. So when they say, oh, I've had a car accident, oh, wait, I know that guy, Neil, he does personal injury law, or I have a custody issue with my child. Oh, the Tyra law firm, I get it. I remember them. So you want to be top of mind. Estate planning. Now, sometimes people come to an estate planning attorney because they've had a death in the family and the probate experience didn't go well, and they don't want to leave their family in the same position. So sometimes that's the case, but more often the case is you have to educate the client as to why they need your services. So the marketing paradigm is completely different. It's one of education as opposed to one of being top of mind and responsive to a need. So I wish I'd known that. I spun my wheels a lot trying to market an estate planning practice the same way I marketed a family law practice, and they're really kind of two different animals. The other thing I wish that I'd known then better, virtual assistants. I'm a huge proponent of virtual assistants and outsourcing as much as you possibly can. So I outsourced my receptionist to a firm, Ruby Receptionist, plug for them. They're my favorites.
Oh, good. I've actually read about them. I wasn't sure if I should use something like that or just keep going on with what I'm doing.
Yeah, I love Ruby Receptionist. You pay a little bit extra for them, but I think the quality is extraordinarily good. I outsource my bookkeeping. So I have a local online bookkeeper, SusieQBookkeeping.com. She helps me, manage my books. I've outsourced a lot of my content management and marketing work. So everything I can, I look to find a source that can do that work for me, because it means that I have more time to devote to working on my business as opposed to in it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I love that. I'm going to be putting all those links on our show notes as well. So if anybody wants to access them, they can. And I loved that. I didn't know about the LinkedIn education.
LinkedIn Learning. Yeah.
LinkedIn Learning. I didn't know about that. And so I'm going to be checking that out myself.
Yeah.
And well, I just thank you so much for being on this episode with us today. I have learned personally so much. And I appreciate all the knowledge that you have shared with us today.
Thanks. I hope it's beneficial to some, and it's something I like to talk about. I do a lot of that, and so this was delightful to be able to spend some time with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining Law Chat with Girja. I love these kind of stories and conversations where we can be real, honest, and open, and having fun at the same time. I hope you are inspired and motivated to keep doing the amazing work you are doing. If this is something that gave you all those feels and then some, truly motivated and inspired for you, you can show your love in all or one of these ways. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and share this video with your community and tell them about it, or share with somebody that can benefit from it. I look forward to seeing you next time on another episode of Law Chat, and until then, keep moving forward. Bye.